Hello and welcome to Between Worlds. I'm Jennifer Kavanaugh and today is February 11th, 2021. And I've been sharing with a lot of people lately as we've talked about our fears and our emotions and how we feel when we go to the grocery store or we are at work or we're at home, and how our emotional state seems to change pretty rapidly. Even when we're just, watching TV or listening to the news, that state changes pretty rapidly. And there's a reason for that. I think this is the theory that I'm working on anyway, is if we think of the whole world as atoms, right? Like a lot of us know that the world is made up of atoms that are vibrating. So if you have two atoms in the same space and one atom is vibrating at a frequency of joy, because all of our emotions hold a different frequency. And you can look that up, you can research that and figure out exactly what frequencies are aligned with each emotions. But if we have those two atoms and one is vibrating at joy and another one is vibrating in fear, what we know is that when two atoms come together, they're going to move into the same frequency. They're going to move into alignment with one another. They're going to move into resonance with one another. So the question becomes, which frequency do they move into? And this is the really interesting point. So when we look at the energy in those atoms, whichever atom has the highest amplitude, which means they have the highest volume of energy, they're going to be the one that causes the other atom to move into frequency. So it's like if I'm feeling really joyful and I have a lot of amplitude in that energy, I'm going to hold that energy no matter what. Right. And the people who come around me, if they're in fear, my atoms will invite their atoms to either move into that frequency of joy, or they may say, too much of this joy business for me, and they may go the other way, which is why we're seeing a lot of people right now are having this division, right, with people that they know, because as we change our frequency, we're inviting others to come into that frequency if we can hold that amplitude, right? So when we look at, the human body, we know that the human body is an electrical receiver. We know that the human body receives and generates energy. And I always think of the spine as this like copper tube, as like a conductor of energy, right? So our body is receiving all of that energy. It's receiving that information, it's processing that information, and it's connecting it into our brain so that we can interpret it and understand it. And we also know that, our energy field from our body can extend outwards. We talk about the torus field, or as Simpsons calls it, this donut of energy that rotates around us. And depending on the research that you look at, we know that field can go anywhere from 3 to 9 feet, generally, is what we see in the research, outwards from our body. So whatever energy we're feeling, whatever emotional frequency we're carrying, is extending out from our body 3 to 9 feet from us. So when we go into an office space, or we go into a school, or we come home, or we go to the grocery store, our energy is literally melding with other people that are in that space. And some of us, keep that energy in a little closer to our bodies, and some of us extend it even further than that. I believe there's the capability to expand it all the way around the planet, potentially even all the way out to the universe. And so we want to make sure that we're really tuning into what is our baseline? What is the baseline frequency that we're carrying? When we wake up in the morning, how are we feeling? When you first open your eyes, maybe even before you open your eyes, is do that quick tune in, that quick check-in of, okay, I've woken up in 2021, and how am I feeling this morning before I have to go to work, before I have to deal with kids, before any of that, and notice what that baseline is. Now you can change this. This is what's really critical, I think, is that when we look at how do we amplify, so whoever has the highest amplitude in a room, whether that's your home or your work or your school, whoever has the highest amplitude technically would be controlling the energy of that space, okay? And we know that the amplitude often is generated from the heart, physically from the heart. And we know that the heart is 5,000 times more stronger of an electrical field than the mind is, and this is why when we look at The Secret and manifesting things in our world, it has to come from our heart. not from our mind, because we can think it, but it's going to be 5,000 times more powerful if we feel it, right? So if we can get into a space where we learn, which we can, how to amplify that heart field. So strengthen the energy that's coming out from our heart, strengthening the energy that we're generating, drawing on infinite sources of energy as well, so that we don't become drained. You know, have you ever thought of those days where you go into an environment and you're trying so hard to stay positive, like you're doing everything in your power to stay positive, but the people around you are just pulling you down and sucking that energy out, right? And they're depleting the energy you have in your heart. But if you can connect with the energy of infinite sources, like the earth, like the sun, coming back into our connection and our alignment with the stars and the earth, right? Then we have infinite energy that we can combine with our heart. So as we expand that heart's field, we're strengthening it to become louder. Now, here's the important part, though, is if you strengthen your heart field and you get really loud, that also comes with it the responsibility of managing your emotional state, your emotional frequency. Because if you're the loudest person in the room and you're having an awful day, everybody else in that room is going to start having an awful day as well. And all of us have probably seen this before, right? You go into work and you have one person there that's really miserable, and suddenly you're miserable because you have absorbed, you have aligned your frequency to resonate with their frequency. And here's what we know is the higher our amplitude is, the more coherent our heart energy is, the less likely we are to take on other people's energy. Okay. So when we strengthen that coherence, that amplitude, we have that responsibility ethically to stay in a positive state as much as we can. I mean, we're human beings, so we're going to ride the wave too. And the question becomes, how do we stay there? Right. And that's where it becomes really important, I feel, to constantly be making memories, making moments that bring you peace, appreciation, gratitude, joy, love, honor, pride, whatever, things that move you into a state that's, we'll say, above neutral. You know, I have memories of playing with my kids, moments, you know, where we've just had deep belly laughs with friends, or it can be as simple as, you know, walking outside on a summer's day in the middle of a warm rain shower and remembering the sensation of the raindrops falling down your face. All those memories can move us back into that resonance that we were feeling that moment, whatever positive emotion that was. And the more that we can feel the emotion from those memories, the more that we pull that into our heart's field, our heart's energy. So as we amplify our energy, we're now sending that positivity outwards. We're sending it out in the 3 to 9 feet from our body, right? So we're protecting, in a sense, we're protecting our energy field in that process. And here's the really beautiful thing is that there is science to show that if we're holding that positive energy and we're amplifying it in our field, that when we come in contact with other people, that they are more likely to move into that similar state. They're not going to see generally your emotions, maybe not yet. Maybe that'll come further along in the new earth as our telepathy expands. But their heart is going to move into resonance. Their atoms are going to vibrate in that resonance with you. And I think this is a really beautiful thing to offer, because right now, you know, a lot of the energy when we look at how do we fix all these problems that we have, you know, there's a lot of energy about fighting. And we need to stick it to the man type thing, but we need to fight for our freedom. We need to fight for our rights. We need to fight, you know, and we're using that language too of fighting. And that's just natural, you know, that's just part of our process as we work through this. So it's, you know, please don't give anybody a hard time if they're using that language. It's just what's coming to them. It's natural based on how we've learned and we've evolved. But there's this really beautiful thing. Many years ago, I was at a conference and there was someone talking about activism and how activism is really just fighting. You know, we're fighting something that we view as negative, but we're using the same energy to try to combat it. So you have something that's not great and you're using fighting energy to try to stop that not great. So, it's kind of like that concept of two wrongs don't make a right. And I'm so sorry because I can't remember the gentleman that was presenting this, but it stuck with me all these years. This was like 10 years ago or so, of how if we could just approach our activism from a place of love, instead of trying to tear down and destroy and fight, of coming from a place of peace, coming from a place of love, coming from a place of creation. How do we, we have this issue, but how do we take it from a positive perspective? And this is where I feel, one of the great ways that we can look at some of the challenges that we're facing right now is, first off, what's my energy? And what's my coherence? What's my amplitude? Because if I work on myself and I strengthen my field, I'm not going to be affected by that energy, or at least not as much, right? It's not going to pull me down. And a big part of what's going on behind the scenes, behind the veil right now, is to move us into a state of fear. So one of the best things we can do is strengthen our energy so we don't move into that state of fear, so that we can stay neutral, or we can stay, calm, or we can stay in joy, even if we can reach that point and sustain that point. And by doing that, we have one less person on the planet who cannot be influenced or controlled from a fear perspective, right? And when you can't be controlled by fear, you become sovereign, you become free. And then once you get control of that, then everywhere you go, you hold that energy. You hold that frequency of sovereignty. Do you see what I'm saying? And if you're holding that frequency of sovereignty and you're amplifying, and you can sustain it really easily because you're drawing on infinite sources of energy, everyone that you come in contact with is invited into that energy of sovereignty. And even if they don't get all the way up to neutral or above, but they get 1 hertz higher. So they're maybe in not as much fear. Maybe they move from fear to anxiousness. That's still a win, because we want to gradually move people up. And looking at the people who are in a state of fear and attacking them and blaming them for being in that state of fear is just keeping them in that state of fear, right? It's the 2 wrongs don't make a right theory again. So if instead we can not say anything at all, because we know the words aren't really working in some cases, but we simply hold our energy of love. We hold our energy of gratitude. We hold our energy of sovereignty. And everywhere we go, we share that energy. And here's a really beautiful thing, is that if we take that a step further and we look into subtle energy, and we know that inanimate objects also are atoms that are vibrating. And we know that the plants are also atoms that are vibrating. That means literally your energy can affect anything around you. And when we look at inanimate objects, like your desk, your walls, your furniture, they are vibrating, but they don't have the same level of consciousness that we do as human beings, but they'll still hold that frequency. So in your home, if the consistent frequency is calm and peace, that's the frequency that the atoms in your home are going to hold. So when you come into your home, or somebody else comes into your home, they're going to pick up on that frequency and they're going to be invited into that frequency. But if your home holds, more consistently the frequency of fear or anxiety, that's going to be the energy that's held within the walls of your home. Okay. And you can shift all that by shifting you shift the energy in the home, right? And the same thing is done in businesses, in grocery stores, in all our public spaces that we go out to. And I don't know if you have noticed, but in the last year, grocery stores in particular, a lot of them are holding a frequency of fear and anxiety, right? Because when all this started, everyone was panicking. And what was the one place we were going where that fear was really high? The grocery store. And so each one of us, when we go out to get our groceries or go out to a public space or go out to a park, if we can hold in ourselves that frequency of love, that frequency of peace, that frequency of sovereignty, we are slowly and gradually changing that energy back to what it should be, to what we want it to be. Okay. And if this is something that you want to learn, if you head over to my website, jenniferkavanagh.ca, you'll see a link down below. There, I have a tab of meditations, and they're all free. There's a meditation in there. It's also on my channel here, called the Primus Activation Meditation. This was developed by Samaya Astor, one of my teachers. And it teaches you, if you were to do this every day, it teaches you to draw in these infinite sources of energy and how to bring a warm, loving feeling into your heart, a positive resonance into your heart, and then send that out into the world. So that's one of the ways that you can actively work on amplifying that field, and it's available there for you for free. So there's no charge, because this is really important for us, for each of us, to be doing this work right now. And keep an eye out, because I will be doing a guided group in the next couple weeks. I'm just working on finalizing some details now to effectively work on this process, so we can come together as a group and not only use our individual power as individual human beings, but to work as a group to create this group field, which is always stronger, to amplify this positive energy, to amplify this energy of love and peace and sovereignty, and to work, you know, you could say behind the veil, or I like to think of it more as in the subtle realms, to support the energy that is manifesting in the physical form. Because we all know from the human body that a lot of our illnesses, a lot of our injuries, aches and pains, a lot of that first manifests in our other bodies, our energetic bodies, our emotional bodies first. And if we don't resolve them there, then they manifest in the physical. I would think, this is my theory, that the same thing happens when we look at the earth, when we look at our collective humanity. You know, if it's manifesting in the physical form, more than likely there's a cause out there that is in that more energetic realm. And that's my interest. That's my interest, is we can make some positive changes in that energetic realm that can then bleed through into our physical world. You know, so that we don't have to necessarily fight, or we can at least support those people who are on the front lines that are doing some of that important work as well, but we can support it from that balanced energy of love behind the scenes, so that we're doing this in a really cohesive way. And that as we create this new version of Earth that we all want, you know, this blissful, peaceful world, that we're infusing it in the creation of that earth with that energy, you know, because we need that love to be part of the creation story here. So that's my spiel for today. Please do check out that meditation. I highly recommend it. There's others there on my website as well. They're all free. So there's no reason not to use them if that's something that would support you at this time. All right, much love to everyone, and I'll see you all soon.